Chapter 24. Me and the preacher, we started walking and calling Winn-Dixie's name. I was so glad it was raining so hard because it made it easy to cry. I cried and I cried and I cried, and the whole time I was calling out for Winn-Dixie. Winn-Dixie! I screamed. Winn-Dixie! The preacher shouted. And then he whistled loud and long, but Winn-Dixie didn't show up. We walked through the downtown, we walked through Dewberry's house, and we walked through Herman W. Block Memorial Library, and we went through by Sweetie Pie Thomas's yellow house and Gertrude's Pets. We walked out to the Friendly Corners trailer park, and we looked underneath the trailer, and we walked all the way out to Open Arms Baptist Church in Naomi. We walked past the railroad tracks and right on down to Highway 50. Cars were rushing past us, and they had taillights glowed red. They like mean eyes staring at us. Daddy, I said, Daddy, what if he's run over? Opal, the preacher said, we can't worry about what might have happened. All we can do is keep looking. And we walked and we walked and we walked. And in my head, I started to list the 10 things that I knew about Winn-Dixie. Things that I could write on old posters and put them up all over the neighborhood. Things that would tell people to look for him. Number 1 was that he had a pathological fear of thunderstorms. Number 2, he always liked to smile using all his teeth. Number 3, he could run fast. Number 4, he snored. Number 5, he could catch mice without even squishing them to death. Number 6, he liked to eat meat. He liked to meet people. Number 7, he loved to eat peanut butter. Number 8 was he couldn't stand to be left alone. Number 9 was he liked to sit on couches and sit on beds. Number 10 was he didn't mind going on the couch. I kept going over that list in my head, and I memorized it the same way I memorized 10 things about my mama. I memorized it so that if I'd ever found him, I would have some part of him to hold on to. But at the same time, I thought of something else. I had never thought of this before, was that list of things could never begin to show me somebody as the real Winn-Dixie, just like the list of 10 things could never show me what my mama was really like. And thinking about that made me cry even harder. Me and the preacher looked for a long time, and finally he said we had to quit. But Daddy, I said, Winn-Dixie's out there somewhere. We can't leave him. Opal, said the preacher, we have looked, and there is only so much looking we can do. I can't believe you're going to give up, I told him. India Opal, the preacher said, rubbing his nose, don't you argue with me. I stood and I stared at him, and the rain had let up some. It was mostly a drizzle now. It's time to head back now, said the preacher. No, I told him. You go ahead and you go, but I'm going to keep on looking. Opal, said the preacher, in a very soft voice, it's time to give up. You always give up, I shouted. You always pulling your head inside that stupid old turtle shell. I bet you didn't even go out looking for Mama when she left. I bet you just let her run off too. Baby, said the preacher, I could not stop her. I tried. Don't you think I wanted her to stay too? Don't you think I miss her every day? He spread out his arms wide and dropped them to the sides. I tried, he said. I tried. And then he did something I could not believe. The preacher started to cry. The preacher was crying. His shoulders were moving up and down, and he was making snuffly noises. And don't believe that losing Winn-Dixie doesn't bother me as much as it does you, he said. I love that dog. I love him too. Daddy, I said as I went around and wrapped my arms around his waist. He was crying so hard he was shaking. It's all right, I told him. It's okay. Shh, I said to him like he was a scared little kid. Everything will be okay. We stood there hugging and crying and rocking back and forth, and after a while the preacher stopped. He stopped shaking, and I still held on to him. I finally got the nerve to ask him a question I've been wanting to ask him for so long. Daddy, do you think she's ever going to come back? I whispered. No, said the preacher. No, I don't. I've hoped and I've prayed and I've dreamed about it for years, but I don't think she'll ever come back. Gloria says you can't hold on to anything that you can only love, that you only can love it while you got it. She's right, the preacher said. Gloria Dump is right. Daddy, I'm not ready to let go of Winn-Dixie, I said. I had forgotten about him a minute with all that thinking about my mama. We'll keep looking, said the preacher. The two of us will keep looking for him. But do you know what, Opal? I just realized something, Indian Opal. When I told you your mama took everything with her, I forgot one very important thing that she left behind. What? I asked. You, he said. Thank God your mama left me you. And he hugged me even tighter. I'm glad I've got you too, I told him. And I meant it. I took a hold of his hand and we started walking back to town, calling and whistling Winn-Dixie the whole way. Chapter 25. We heard the music before we even got to Gloria Dump's house. We heard it almost a block away. It was a guitar playing and singing and clapping, and I wondered what was going on, my father said. So we walked up to Gloria Dump's sidewalk, around the back, and through her yard, and into the kitchen. What we saw was Otis. He was playing his guitar, and Miss Franny and Miss Gloria sitting there smiling and singing, and Gloria holding on to Sweetie Pie on her lap, and Amanda and Dunlop and Stevie Dewberry were sitting on the kitchen floor. They were clapping along, having a good old time. Even Amanda was smiling. I couldn't believe it. They were so happy when Dixie was missing. We didn't find him, I shouted at him. The music stopped and Gloria Dump looked at me and said, Child, we know you didn't find him. You didn't find him because he was right here the whole time. She looked at her cane, took her cane, and poked something underneath her chair. Come out of there, she said. There was a snuffle and a sigh. He's asleep, she said. He's been plumb wore out. She poked around with her cane again, and Winn-Dixie stood up from underneath her and yawned. Winn-Dixie, I hollered. Dog, screeched Gertrude. Winn-Dixie wagged his tail and showed me all his teeth and sneezed, and I went pushing past everybody. I dropped to the floor and wrapped my arms around him. Where have you been? I asked him. He yawned again. How did you find him? I asked. Now there's a story, said Miss Franny. Gloria, why don't you tell it? Well, said Gloria Dump, we were all just sitting around waiting on you two, and after I convinced these Dewberry boys I ain't no scary witch at all, full of spells and potions. She ain't no witch, Stevie said. He shook his bald head, and he looked kind of disappointed. Nah, said Dunlop, she ain't. If she was, she would have turned us into toads by now, he grinned. I could have told you that she wasn't no witch. Witches don't exist, said Amanda. They're just myths. Well, all right now, said Gloria. What happened was we got through all them witchy things, and then, Franny said, why don't we have a little music while we wait for you two to get back? And so Otis played his guitar, and woo-wee! There isn't a song that boy don't know. And if he don't know it, he can pick it up right away if you hum it to him. He has a gift, that boy. Gloria stopped and smiled over at Otis, and he smiled back at her. He looked all lit up from inside. So good to see. Well, tell me what happened. Tell what happened, said Sweetie Pie. Tell about the dog. So, said Gloria, Franny and me, we wanted to sing some kind of songs we knew from when we were girls, so we got Otis to play them. And we started singing along with the words and teaching the words to the children, and then somebody sneezed. Sweetie Pie yelled, Somebody sneezed! Somebody sneezed! That's right, said Gloria. Somebody sneezed, and it wasn't none of us, so we looked around wondering who did that. And that maybe we got us a burglar in the house. We looked around and we didn't see nothing. So we started singing again, and sure enough, there was another big achoo. Sounded like it was coming from my bedroom. So I sent Otis in there, and I said, Otis, you go in there and see who's sneezing. So Otis went, and do you know what he found? I shook my hand. Winn-Dixie, shouted Sweetie Pie. The dog of yours was all underneath my bed, squeezed right under there like the world was about to end, and he was smiling like a fool every time he heard Otis play his guitar and sneezing so hard that smiling so hard that he sneezed. My daddy laughed. "It's true," Miss Franny said. "It's the truth," said Stevie. Dunlop nodded and smiled right at me. "So," Gloria Dump said, "Otis played his guitar right to that dog, and little bit at a time Winn-Dixie came creeping out from underneath that bed." "He was covered in dust," said Amanda. "He looked like a ghost," said Dunlop. "Yeah," said Sweetie Pie, "just like a ghost." Said Gloria. "Looked just like a ghost. Anyway, the storm stopped, and after a while, your dog just settled under my chair and fell asleep. And that's what we've been doing ever since, waiting for you to come back and find him." "Winn-Dixie," I said, and I hugged him so tight he wheezed. "We were out there whistling and calling for you and you were right here all the time. Thank you," I said to everybody. "Well," said Gloria Dump, "we didn't do nothing. We just sat here and waited and sang songs. We all got to be good friends now. The punch ain't nothing but water, but the egg salad sandwiches got tore up by the rain. You got to eat 'em with the spoon if you want egg salad. But we got pickles, and we got litmus lozenges, and we got a party going on." My daddy pulled up the kitchen chair and sat down. "Otis, do you know any hymns?" "I sure know some," said Otis. "You hum it," Miss Franny said. "You hum it," nodding her head, "and he can play it." So my daddy, he started humming something, and Otis picked it up on his guitar, and Winn-Dixie wagged his tail, and he sat back down underneath Gloria's chair. I looked around at the room, at all the different faces, and I felt my heart swell up inside so big with pure happiness. "I'll be back in a minute," I said. But they were all singing now and laughing, and Winn-Dixie was snoring, so no one even heard me. Chapter 26. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the clouds had gone away, and the sky was so clear it seemed like I could see every single star ever made. And I walked all the way back to the back of Gloria Dump's yard, and I walked back to the place where her mistake tree was. And the bottles were quiet. There wasn't a breeze. So they were there, just hanging there, and I looked at the tree, then I looked up at the sky. "Mama," I said, just like she was standing right there with me, "I know 10 things about you. And that's not enough. That's not near enough. But Daddy's going to tell me more. I know he will. Now he knows that you're not coming back. He misses you, and I miss you too. But my heart doesn't feel empty anymore. It's full all the way up. I still think about you, I promise. But probably not as much as I did this summer." That's what I said that night underneath Gloria Dump's mistake tree. And after that, I was done saying that. I stood there, just staring up the sky, looking at the constellations and the planets. And then I remembered my own tree, and Gloria Dump helped me plant. I hadn't looked at that for a long time. So I went crawling around on my hands and knees and searching for it. And there I found it. I was surprised at how much it had grown. It was still small. It still looked more like a plant than a tree. But it had leaves and it had branches, and it felt real strong and good and right. And I was down there on my knees when I heard a voice saying, "Are you praying?" I looked up and it was Dunlop. "No," I said, "I'm not praying, I'm thinking." He crossed his arms and looked down at me. "About what?" he said. "Oh, all about different kinds of things," I said. "I'm sorry that I called Stevie a bald-headed baby." "That's all right," he said. "Glory told me to come out here and get you." "I told you she wasn't a witch." "Oh, I know it," he said. "I knew it all along. I was just teasing with you." "Oh," I said. I looked at him close. It was hard to give him look good at him in the dark yard. "Ain't you ever gonna stand up?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. And then he surprised me. He did something I never, ever in a million years thought a Dewberry boy would do. He actually held his hand up to help me up, and I took it, and I let him pull me to my feet. "I'll race you to the back of the house," Dunlop said as he started to run. "Okay," I shouted, "but I'm warning you, I'm really fast." We ran, and of course I beat him. I touched the corner of Gloria Dump's house right before he did. "You shouldn't be running in the dark," said Amanda. She was standing on the porch looking at us. "You could trip over something." "Oh, Amanda," said Dunlop and shook his head. Oh, Amanda, I said too, and then I remembered Carson, and I felt bad for her, and I went up on the porch, took a hold of her hand, and pulled on her. Come on, I said. Let's go inside. India Opal, Daddy said when me and Amanda and Dunlop walked in. Are you here to sing some songs with us? Yes, sir, I said. Only I don't know that many songs. We'll teach you, he said, and he smiled at me real big. It was a good thing to see the preacher smile. That's right, said Glory Dump. We will. Sweetie Pie's sitting right on her lap with her eyes closed. Care for a litmus lozenge? Miss Franny asked, passing me the bowl. Thank you, I said. I took that litmus lozenge. I unwrapped it and I put it in my mouth. Do you want a pickle? Otis asked, holding up a big jar of pickles. No, thank you, not right now, I said. Winn-Dixie came out from underneath Gloria Dump's chair. He sat down next to me and leaned into me and came the same as I was leaning into my daddy. And Amanda stood right there beside me. And when I looked over her, she didn't look pinchy-faced at all. Dunlop cracked his knuckles and I said, well, we're going to sing or what? Yeah, Stevie echoed. Are we going to sing or what? Well, let's sing, said Sweetie Pie, opening her eyes, sitting straight up. Let's sing a song for the dog. Otis laughed and strummed his guitar, and the flavor of the litmus lozenge opened in my mouth like a flower blooming, all sweet and sad. And then Otis and Gloria and Stevie and Miss Franny and Dunlop and Amanda and Sweetie Pie and my daddy all started to sing a song. And I listened careful so I could learn the words right. The end.